Hi, I'm Michelle Beckham-Corbin, president of C3 Creating Connections Consulting, a social media marketing strategy firm.
And I'm Mark McCumber, president of McCumber Creations, and welcome to our show, Digitally Speaking.
We are very happy to be back here with our viewing audience. If you tuned in to our last show, which was show 19, we talked about the sociological side of social media, which is kind of a tongue twister. But we ended up covering a lot of really interesting topics. Some things that are of concern not only for businesses, but also for us as individuals. Some problems that come along with social media, and then some wonderful things as well.
It was a great show. I was very excited about it. We touched base on a lot of things that we really had never touched base before in our 19 episodes, and it was great. We covered some cool ground.
Yeah, and so today we're going to kind of switch gears and get back to the complete business side, and we're going to talk about 5 key steps to social media marketing success. So we're still kind of at the beginning of the year, and this is a time when businesses are really starting to evaluate their marketing strategies, of which social media should be a very important part. And they're taking a look at what worked well for them the previous year, what needs to change, maybe based on trends that are happening, and you know, what they might want to continue doing, some things that worked really well and they want to continue with that. So I just wanted to be able to share from my expertise some things that businesses should be looking at that can really help them to be successful.
Well, I think it's great too because many small businesses and small entrepreneurs really need this type of advice because as we often wear a lot of different hats in small business, it's really helpful to have a good benchmark, a good roadmap on how to get a good marketing plan going. So good stuff.
Yeah, and you know, Mark, there's a video that I want to share with folks. It'll be really easy for them to find on YouTube, and it's called Social Media Revolution 2015. It was created by a guy by the name of Eric Qualman, and he's been creating these videos, gosh, for probably the last 6 or 7 years, and they're fantastic. This one in particular does a really nice job of painting in broad strokes where we are today as a culture with social media and why it's so important to businesses. And I love the way he ends the video with this giant globe of the world and really trying to show that we've moved away from word of mouth marketing into world of mouth marketing, and how important it is for businesses to realize that other people are making decisions about their brands, they're creating perceptions about their brands, and businesses need to make sure that they're on top of that and that it's the correct perception, because that's what folks are doing. They're making these decisions whether to purchase or to use your services in terms of how your brand is represented. So when we take a look at, you know, what can businesses do to really kind of kickstart the year off, what I like to tell people is that, number one, no matter who's running social media for their business, they need to develop their knowledge base. They need to find some tools that will give them some education so that they can be on top of not only trends, but really to have kind of an even basic understanding of, let's say, how Facebook marketing works or how Twitter works, regardless of who's actually going to be handling it for them.
Well, even nomenclature. I mean, because there is a jargon, there is a verbiage that goes along with social media that if you don't stay up on it, you know, what's a mash? What are we mashing? You know, so very important. Are you mashing music? Are we mashing, you know, information? So
yeah, music was the first thing that came to mind when you said that.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, and we'll have these on the screen, but some of my favorites are, I love free resources, number one. I think everybody loves anything that's free, right? That's truly free. But some really great resources are blogs. And a few that I like are Mashable, Social Media Examiner, Simply Measured, and Buffer Social. And these blogs do a great job of not only talking about trends, but also having some wonderful how-to articles. Or even articles about new tools. I saw Social Media Examiner had had one on yesterday that kind of flew by my news feed, and it was 7 marketing tools for Facebook pages. And there were actually, of the 7, there were probably 4 that I was not even aware of. So these were new tools, free tools, that would really help you to rock that part of your marketing program. I think the other thing that's really key is, as you know, tons of free resources online. I mean, webinars and even YouTube videos for people to watch. And our show, Digitally Speaking, another great resource for people to pick up some information on social media. And then I always recommend where you can get real training, group training, individual training, or coaching, that's a wonderful thing for a business person to do as well.
Well, it just gives you a lot of opportunity too, because so much, again, I relate this back to small business, that budgets aren't often very, very huge with small businesses. And when you can get a lot of resource offline, or you can find places to become educated with all the different fast changing things that are happening in the social network world, it's great, because you don't have to write necessarily a check every time, just to at least get the perfunctory pieces of it.
Right, exactly. The knowledge piece, exactly. And another thing is to stay abreast of trends, and we did an entire show on trends, so I'm not going to kind of use up our airtime to talk about those, other than I will just mention video. We've been talking about images being very important for the last couple of years, but boy, if you are not using video in any part of your marketing, you're losing out. So that's all I'm going to say about trends from that perspective. But one thing, that I think successful businesses are really realizing is that it's all about content. It's not about buying likes, or paying for all kinds of things that are kind of shady. Pay us this amount of money and we'll get 500 people to like your Facebook page, right? That just, in the end, is not really going to fly, because people are going to interact with a Facebook page if the content is the content that they're looking for. So content is king, and it's not only your own content, but it's also what we call kind of curated content, or even user-generated content. So I wanted to share an example from a company that had great success with user-generated content. Over the summer, Applebee's, the restaurant, ran a contest with a hashtag. The contest was called #Fantographer. And so what they did was they urged their diners to take a picture of their food and to use the hashtag Fantographer. And the pictures were spread all over. Applebee's kind of picked some of the best pictures to feature. And of course, that gets back to that. Everybody wants their used to be 15 minutes of fame, but I think we'll take 1 minute of fame now. But, for people to really see that their photos were featured by the restaurant. So that all sounds well and good. So what happened with that? Between July and September of this past summer, 2014, Applebee's increased their Instagram following by 32% and their user engagement by 25%. I don't have the sales figures, but obviously increasing engagement led to more feet into the restaurant and an increase in sales. But that's just a great example of how the pictures aren't even their pictures, right? Other people are taking the pictures, but they get to use that in the marketing and get everybody very excited. So anyway, like I said, trends, watch episode, I want to say 18, and you'll hear all about the trends for 2015. But I wanted to talk a little bit about creating strategic social media marketing plans. So step 1, I said you really want to get that knowledge base cemented for yourself. Step 2 is really creating that plan for the year, for the campaign, for the time period that you're looking at. And what businesses really need to do, no matter how long they've been in business, is to ask themselves a couple of key questions that will help with this plan. Number 1 is, what makes them unique? So what I tell folks is, there are many other people providing the same service or product that you do. Why would somebody choose you? Why would they choose to spend their dollars with you? How do you stand out? So that's that's a big one. Really knowing who your target market is and your audience, and then really understanding where they hang out online. And I know I can tell you're kind of thinking about your new endeavor maybe as we're talking about these, and these are great questions for you as well.
Sure.
Thinking about, where would the folks that would be coming to your studio, that would be purchasing your album and your book, where do they reside right now online?
One interesting thing too, even social media, social marketing, some of the basics haven't changed from marketing since day one, really. You still are identifying your market. You're still trying to figure out how to get to them. Now you just have different platforms and different ways to get to them, a lot faster, cheaper, easier, better. So some of the basics are still the same for those of you who are in small business and still trying to identify your market, your demographic, your target. You just have so many more tools now to get to them.
And Mark, that's a really great point, because I really feel a lot of businesses are getting this, and maybe small businesses, because maybe the business owner wears so many hats that they're not quite getting this idea. I think some very small businesses may still think that social media is just something that's emerging. And you're absolutely right. It's marketing. Marketing has been around ever since, the dawn of time.
Right.
And this is just another way to do the marketing.
Well, and what was always interesting is marketing was its sister was always advertising. So you had marketing, and then you had the advertising of how to get it out there, and you had to buy TV time, you had to buy ads in newspapers or in magazines or handouts or flyers, et cetera, et cetera. And now we have these, ladies and gentlemen, and you can just push a button and it goes out to wherever you send it. Pretty amazing. It's just really amazing.
You're right, absolutely. And so a couple of the other questions that I have, again, are those typical marketing questions. What does the competitive landscape look like? And then where are your competitors on social media, and how are they leveraging social media? Are they doing a great job? If they're doing a horrible job, boy, that's an opportunity for you to shine, you know? So those are things to look at, as well as what is your call to action? So especially with social media. You may know that you sell widgets and you've been selling widgets and you want people to buy widgets, but is that clear in your social media content, right? Or are you so busy sharing the really cute cat videos on YouTube that you're forgetting to occasionally kind of put that message in the right way with the right content, but drawing people back to the website, to the call to action?
And I think that's in any marketing, I think that's one of the things, at least in my world, what we talk about all the time is about how to pick the message that you're trying to get across. And some of those things still go back, and we talk about Marshall McLuhan and the medium is the message, about how do you get that message and how do you continue. You might be able to change its color a little bit or iterate it a little bit, but that message still has to be really impactful, and you have to continue to drive it because often it does take repetition to get, marketing basics, it takes repetition to get it through to the consumer to say, oh, that's what those guys do, and I'm going to give them a shot, or I'm going to take my business their direction once to see how they perform, and if they do a good job, I'll come back, and maybe I'll tell my friends. So it's basics again, but still, what a great medium in social media to be able to get out there and get the message, get the call to action out, and just a great opportunity. And
what's really wonderful with digital advertising is that opportunity for testing. So I taught a workshop recently, and someone raised the question that they identified that their target audience was made up of professionals, and that LinkedIn really was a great place, a great social media platform for them to be connecting and advertising. So they were using LinkedIn ads, and they felt like they were not getting a bang for their acquisition costs. And so what I said was, use that opportunity to be able to run a couple of different iterations of your ad. But, it's all back to whether you're talking about an ad on LinkedIn or Facebook, or even, let's say, your newsletter or email. what's that first line that they see, whether it's the subject line in the newsletter or, in the ad copy. It's got to be something that's going to draw people in. And then, again, the content's got to be something that they're looking for, and you've got to have that clear call to action, that click here that takes us to, whatever it is that someone is wanting, the person to do. So anyway, in looking at Google Analytics, just to make sure where is the traffic coming to your website, how long are they spending on the site, when are they bouncing off, all of that is just really, really good information. And when you ask yourself those questions and you determine where you need to be from a social media marketing point of view, you want to make sure, and we've talked about this on the show before, that you're creating content plans and engagement strategies and also an advertising strategy for each of the platforms. And then making sure that you're setting objectives and measures, because how do we know we're successful if we don't have something to guide us?
Sure.
And to know when we need to kind of fine tune or run a couple of other tests, et cetera.
Well, measurable outcomes, very important. Kind of revenue streams are we driving by this? And, one of the things I was thinking also while we were talking about this was that the good news is that the small business, well, any business for that matter, now has this access to this incredible medium stream. But one of the things that is a challenge is that there is the same advantage. The playing field is changed dramatically. It used to be if you just had a lot of cash, you could throw money at advertising and marketing, and your cash was going to win you the most hits, the most bang for your buck, because you could afford television, you could afford newsprint, you could afford all that. Nowadays, it's the point of difference, I think, that makes people stand out in the media. As you were saying, your call to action, what is it? What are you selling, and what message do you want to get across, and why are you better than the next guy that does the same thing? If you were in the pizza business, for example, bad example, maybe a great example, but how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else in whatever business that you're in? And because everybody has equal access now to social media, you really have to be clever. You really have to think about your strategies. You really have to think about your point of difference. And when you do get your call to action to say, hey, come to our business, come to our door, knock on our door, and we'll show you what we do differently and how we're better. So it's, there's a two-edged sword with that. Yeah,
and back to what you were saying a little while ago about people talking about the brand, and then back to Eric Qualman's world of mouth marketing. When you do get those people who get to have a relationship with your brand and they love it, and you build this kind of a trust scenario with them, boy, what are they going to do? If we're talking about pizza, they're going to tell their friends, hey, I just tried this new pizza place that came into town, excellent pizza because of these reasons. And so when you get these brand ambassadors kind of walking around, whether it's, actually verbally in person or whether it's through their own social media, but really talking about your brand, boy, that's a big win. That's a big win.
Key, very key factor.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned this a little bit before, Mark, too. It is so important to make sure that all of your marketing is integrated. You're not just creating all of this social media stuff and you're letting your website go, you're letting your print materials go, your newsletters, et cetera. It's all got to work together because it's all marketing. It's all trying to reach your target base. So anyway, so that's kind of the step about creating the strategic plans and kind of how to go about doing that. The other really critical piece is how are you going to manage all of this, right?
That's the question. Yeah. No, truly. It really is the question.
It is. Again, I just taught a workshop recently, and somebody in the audience asked, they said, how many hours should my company devote to social media?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm sorry, that's not a question that you can, just kind of pull an answer up. I said it depends on it depends on your brand. It depends on your objectives. It depends on how many platforms you're on.
Yeah.
And, and even once you get it down to, okay, I think we've realized that we need X amount of time. boy, you've got to be ready for crisis control. You know, if there's all of a sudden a flurry of people commenting, whether it's positively or negatively, boy, you've got to invest some more time into making sure that those people are heard and you're addressing those needs. So I think the two biggest things is for a company to figure out, can we do this in-house or do we have to, you know, pull for some outside help? So if someone's going to do an in-house, and some people don't have the choice, right? If it's a very small, if you're a really small business and you're wearing all those hats, maybe, you know, for now you feel like you've got to be the person handling it. So that's where, you know, that knowledge is going to be really key. If you are looking in-house and you have some other folks that are working for you, making sure that their skill level is where it needs to be to handle all of this. Because again, it's your brand out there, and if someone makes a misstep, boy, that can just set you back incredibly. So if you are able to outsource, you know, you're going to be looking at hiring an agency or a consulting firm. And what I recommend is for folks to definitely get references and quotes, obviously, and to make sure that the folks that they're looking at really know what they're doing. Again, I mean, there are so many people, especially when the economy tanked, that all of a sudden became social media gurus, you know, and you've really got to look at their background. You know, do they have a really good understanding of business, or did they just grow up using Facebook, you know?
Well, so. and that wasn't exclusive to the marketing, you know, construction, design, build, et cetera. It was a very, very similar kind of experience when the economy changed. You know, one of the things I was thinking about when you mentioned in hiring people, and if your company's large enough to be able to afford outside consulting, that's always a great, because you're getting a professional, and professionals obviously know how to navigate. They know it, probably give you the best advice because it's money well spent at that point going with the professional. But there's always, and we were talking about this earlier, internships, where the possibility, if you don't have a full-time budget or a huge budget to throw at marketing, then often you can affiliate with a local university, et cetera, and for that matter, even some other trade schools, et cetera, where you can possibly get an intern with your direction, keep an eye on them, and then you're helping the education pool.
Right, and I was going to say with direction, because I think from the strategy point of view, I would still make sure that if you've got the knowledge base to do that, or maybe hire that consultant for the strategy piece, but certainly for the actual campaign management,
implementation,
the daily, college intern would be a great person. I've actually worked with a lot of companies where they have brought interns in, let's say from Miami University, and then I ended up just training the interns, kind of set the strategy and then train them, and then boom, they were off and running, and you know, could run everything for the brand, which was great. So that piece is very important in terms of who's going to run it. And I want to say the last piece or the last step to successful social media marketing is reputation management. It's really having those ears to the ground in terms of what are people saying about our brand. And there are a lot of ways that folks or businesses can do that. They can use listening tools like Google. They can also use dashboards, and we've talked about dashboards before on the show, like Tweetdeck or Hootsuite, and actually set up columns with the terms that they want to track, their business name, their products, etc. And that is just a key component to really be on top of the chatter about their brand, so that they can then jump in and you know, help to control the flow of conversation, address anything that needs to be addressed very quickly, because that's important. You don't ever want to let something fester. And even if it's a great comment that somebody's putting out, boy, if you can go in and thank someone really quickly, that's going to really go far for kind of building that brand ambassador energy for that particular person. So those are the 5 steps to successful social media marketing. And if we have a second, I wanted to share a really cool marketing program. Do you remember last summer when Coca-Cola came out with the names? As a matter of fact, I've got the Have a Share a Coke Zero with Michelle campaign.
Yeah, right.
That was what we call disruptive marketing because no one had ever done something like that before, and it was absolutely huge. And I just wanted to share, I don't have a lot of the U.S. data, but the data from the very first country, which was Australia. And during that particular summer, Coke sold more than 250 million named bottles and cans in a nation of less than 23 million people. So sold 250 million, it's less than 23 million in the whole country. And then in the U.S., apparently Coke had been declining, and so the campaign in the U.S. Turned an 11-year decline around. Wow. Business started going up. The thing that I found really interesting is this campaign ended up rolling out to 70 different countries, and in Australia, they picked the 150 most popular names. In the U.S., they went to 250. In the U.K., which is considerably smaller than the U.S., they had 1,000 names. So I thought that was very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, that is amazing. So. How do we relate that to small business? How does somebody get some really, again, clever way to come up with a marketing campaign? If you have, Coke is just a mega brand,
right?
But how do you get clever and come up with something like that for yourself? You hire a consultant for one, maybe to help you come up with that. That's the first hot tip here at Digitally Speaking. But those are cool stats.
Yeah, and I think because I actually found my name and I thought it was really cool, and people were kind of like the situation with Applebee's. People were taking pictures of themselves with their can of Coke and sharing it, and that just really spread the message of Coke even further. So really just a great creative example of, what one of the big guys can do. But as Mark said before, social media levels the playing field. There are many creative ideas to be discovered out there. And so just jump in and try some things.
Get your feet wet, ladies and gentlemen. Michelle has always great hot tips for us. And those 5 tips were really, really a good map for you at home and in your business to try to navigate through the social media world as it relates to marketing in your business. So always great topics here at Digitally Speaking, and episodes to come. So be on the lookout for great stuff. We'd like to thank ACTV and everyone here who makes this show possible, and really appreciate you, the viewing audience, coming back over and over. Now don't forget to watch us on YouTube, and there's lots of episodes and lots of information if you want to look things up, either at ACTV's website or at YouTube. So on behalf of Michelle and I, thank you once again for viewing Digitally Speaking, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.